Welcome back to the Stephen A. Smith Show. Before I get on out of here, I had to talk about a story that's very, very important. And albeit indirectly, it involves...
There is a story that cannot be ignored, a story that might be the most dangerous game of financial chicken that modern sports has ever seen. The question hanging over the entire conversation is simple. Is the WNBA about to commit the single biggest financial suicide in the history of professional basketball by mishandling Caitlin Clark? If you follow women's hoops even a little, you already know this. Caitlin Clark is not just another rookie. She is the most marketable female basketball player on the planet, a walking sellout, a human ratings spike, and the reason college women's basketball turned into a primetime spectacle. Yet somehow, the very league that desperately needs her the most is acting like she is a problem to be survived instead of a solution to be protected. Before diving all the way in, one question for you watching this. If you were in Caitlin Clark's shoes, would you stay loyal to the WNBA and take the hits, or would you chase the life-changing bag somewhere else? Drop your answer in the comments. Hit like if you think this situation is insane, and subscribe so you do not miss any of the twists in this story as they unfold. Because what is coming next is not just about charter flights, supermax contracts, or social media beefs. This is about one player's value, global money, jealousy, and a league that might be too stubborn to see the cliff right in front of it. Everything changed the moment one number started circulating online: $76,000. That is roughly Caitlin Clark's base WNBA salary as the number 1 overall pick in 2024, locked in by the collective bargaining agreement at about $76,535 in year 1 and around $338,000 over 4 years. To the ordinary person, that might sound decent on paper, especially coming from college where nil deals already padded her bank account. But in professional sports, in the context of what she is actually generating, record-breaking TV audiences, sold-out crowds, and massive sponsorship interest, it is almost insulting. This is a player whose presence helped shatter viewership records by up to 300%, pushed attendance to levels the league had never seen with the Fever averaging over 17,000 fans per home game, and drove merchandise sales up 500% league-wide. And yet, the contract tying her to the WNBA looks more like a modest office salary than the paycheck for the face of an entire sport. Now look at the comparison that poured gasoline on the outrage. While Caitlin Clark pulled in about $76,000 as a rookie, Rocky the Mountain Lion, the Denver Nuggets mascot, makes around $625,000 a year. The guy in the furry suit, shooting t-shirt cannons and doing trampoline dunks, is earning roughly 8 to 10 times more than the player responsible for some of the most watched women's basketball games in modern history, including playoff matchups that drew over 2 million viewers each. That is when fans stopped just being surprised and started getting angry. Business analysts began asking real questions. How can someone responsible for an estimated quarter of the league's revenue, 26.5% of all economic activity including tickets, merch, and TV, be making less than what many mid-level managers earn in big city offices? How can a player who sells out arenas and boosts local economies by tens of millions be locked into a pay scale that would not qualify for a decent mortgage in some of the markets she plays in? But that salary number was only the first shock. The bigger twist came when someone finally said, if you will not pay her, someone else will. Enter Ice Cube and the Big Three. Before Caitlin Clark ever played a WNBA minute, Cube's 3-on-3 league put a verified, public offer on the table: $5 million to play in the Big Three. This was not rumor. Ice Cube himself confirmed that his organization had extended a historic offer to bring her into the league, with up to 10 games on the schedule, complete with high-profile events and global exposure. Think about the math on that. 10 games, $5 million. That is $500,000 per game, just to show up, hoop, and bring the cameras with her. Meanwhile, the WNBA is paying her under $80,000 for an entire season, including training camp, travel, media obligations, and the physical toll of being targeted every night as the most hyped rookie in league history. What made the offer even more wild is that the Big Three floated the idea that she could still play in the WNBA while doing it. In other words, somebody outside the WNBA looked at Caitlin Clark and said, "We are willing to give you multi-millions for a side gig." That alone explodes any argument that her rookie salary somehow reflects her true value in the marketplace. It does not. It reflects the limits of one particular league's business model. Now here is the part that tells you who Caitlin Clark is. At that moment, she did not jump at the money. She stayed locked in on Iowa, then walked straight into the WNBA draft, focused on building her career the traditional way. She chose the so-called Legacy League over the quick bag. She tried to play by the old rules. But that first $5 million offer did something crucial. It showed the world what she is actually worth. It proved there are people ready to pay her in a way that makes the WNBA salary cap look like a rounding error. And once that door opens in sports, it rarely closes. To understand why foreign money is such a terrifying whisper around the WNBA right now, you have to look at what happened in golf. The Saudi Public Investment Fund decided it wanted to disrupt the PGA Tour and launched LIV Golf, backed by billions of dollars. They did not debate tradition. They did not argue about growing the game. They wrote checks. Massive ones. Phil Mickelson, Dustin Johnson, and other stars got offers so big that traditionalists could protest all they wanted, but the numbers spoke louder. Turning those deals down would have been financial malpractice. LIV Golf did not build from the grassroots. It bought the finished product. The same playbook is at work across multiple sports. Use money to buy influence, credibility, and headlines. It is part branding, part politics, part image cleanup. Call it sports washing if you want, but it works because money talks and tradition walks. Now picture that model pointed straight at women's basketball. Imagine a Saudi-backed super series built around a handful of global women's stars instead of a full league season. No need to duplicate every WNBA franchise. Just carve out the top of the food chain. 10 exhibition games in Riyadh, Abu Dhabi, maybe sprinkled across Europe and Asia. Private jets, 5-star hotels, security, spa-level recovery, and a payday that dwarfs anything the WNBA can legally offer under its current system. For the price of a mid-tier NBA bench player, a foreign-backed group could stack a roster with Caitlin Clark, Angel Reese, Brianna Stewart, Aya Wilson, and a few international names, then market the whole thing as a global Queens of Basketball showcase. The numbers to pull that off are not fantasy when you compare them to what has already happened in men's golf and soccer. But here is the truth. Very few players walk away from a legacy league just for money if they are happy. The bag might be the pull, but there also has to be a push. This is where the story gets ugly, because the pressure pushing Caitlin Clark toward those hypothetical foreign offers is not coming from her bank account. It is coming from the way she has been treated on the hardwood and in the locker room culture of the WNBA. From her very first weeks in the league, the tone around her arrival was not "welcome, let's elevate the game together." It was closer to "you are not special here, and we are going to prove it." Social media lit up with clips of hard fouls and extra physical contact. Some of it clearly just tough playoff-style defense. Some of it looking like something more. Fans debated whether certain plays had any basketball purpose at all, or whether they were designed to send a message. The Kennedy Carter incident became the lightning rod. On an inbounds play, Caitlin took a sudden hip check away from the ball that many casual viewers described as a blindside shot, with little obvious connection to an actual defensive assignment. The officials called it, commentators debated it, and clips went viral on every platform. Some WNBA veterans and fans defended it as "welcome to the league physicality." Others saw it as unnecessary roughness directed at the league's new cash cow. At the same time, a quieter but just as powerful narrative was bubbling: jealousy. You had legends and longtime stars who had grinded for years in half-empty arenas, now watching a 22-year-old rookie arrive with record-breaking NCAA ratings, massive nil money, and a Nike signature shoe before she even played a pro game. It is human nature to feel some type of way about that. Is it fair? Maybe not. Is it real? Absolutely. Instead of everyone grabbing the rope and saying, "Let's ride this wave together and raise salaries for the entire league," large parts of the conversation turned into, "She has to be humbled. She has to pay her dues. And she is not above the game." Diana Taurasi publicly warned that reality is coming when asked about Clark, which many people took as both honest and slightly ominous. Now put yourself in Caitlin Clark's shoes. You are making under $80,000 from your actual WNBA paycheck, getting battered every night as the focal point of every defense, seeing clips of you getting knocked around go viral for all the wrong reasons, and you can feel that pockets of the league resent your fame more than they respect your impact. How long before you start wondering if you really owe this system your loyalty? That is the environment where foreign money starts looking less like a temptation and more like an exit sign. This is where Stephen A. Smith steps in and changes the temperature of the entire conversation. Love him, hate him, agree with him, or roll your eyes at the theatrics, his platform is enormous, and his voice travels. When he starts ringing the bell about the WNBA fumbling the bag with Caitlin Clark, people listen. For months, he has been hammering the same themes: the jealousy, the unnecessary roughness, the lack of protection from the league, the stubbornness of people who would rather teach her a lesson than capitalize on her star power. He calls out the idea that targeting the most valuable player in terms of attention and growth is somehow a sign of toughness instead of self-sabotage. But recently, the tone has shifted. He is not just saying, the WNBA is messing this up. He is implying that the clock is ticking, that there are real conversations happening outside the United States about bringing Caitlin Clark into a different kind of basketball project. He talks openly about the possibility of foreign-backed opportunities, specifically the Middle East, using sports as a tool for influence and image building, with pockets that make WNBA cap space look laughable. When someone with his visibility says, "This is real," it does two things. First, it tells fans that the rumors are not just wild Twitter talk. Second, it sends a warning directly to the WNBA's front office. You are not negotiating against a rookie who has no options. You are negotiating against global capital. The more he repeats that message, the more front offices, agents, players, and fans start asking the same question. Is she really going to stay? Whenever the pay debate flares up, defenders of the WNBA hit one point over and over: revenue. They say, the league is not profitable yet. Players get a percentage of basketball-related income. Until that pie grows, salaries cannot just magically jump. That is the corporate answer. There is some truth there. For years, the WNBA has been subsidized by the NBA, propped up as a long-term investment rather than a standalone gold mine. But Caitlin Clark changed the math in a way that is impossible to ignore. One finance expert estimated that she was responsible for over 26% of total WNBA revenue in 2024. Let that sink in. One rookie, barely into her first season, generating more than a quarter of the league's entire revenue pool, including 1 out of every 6 tickets sold across the league. Yet her 4-year contract sat at a total of about $338,000, with that $76,000 rookie season as the starting point. That is not just underpaid. That is a Grand Canyon-sized gap between value and compensation. It is an arbitrage opportunity screaming to be exploited. In business, when you undervalue an asset badly enough, something inevitable happens. A competitor steps in and offers closer to the real price. If the WNBA insists on treating Caitlin Clark like just another rookie slotted into a rigid scale, foreign investors see nothing but opportunity. They can pay her 10 times what she is currently earning and still come out ahead on attention, sponsorships, and streaming deals that follow her wherever she goes. That is why people keep talking about a nuclear option deal. Not because it is guaranteed, but because the economics make sense for someone with deep enough pockets. So what would that nuclear option actually look like? Imagine this scenario. One foreign-backed series decides to offer Caitlin Clark 1 year of work for the kind of money that shatters the WNBA pay scale into dust. Maybe it is $5 million, maybe 10, maybe even more if multiple groups start bidding. It is not a full 40-game grind. It might be 10 to 12 showcase games, carefully scheduled outside the WNBA calendar or directly against it, depending on how aggressive the backers want to be. Every game is a made-for-TV event, with international sponsors and streaming platforms lining up just to be mentioned in the same sentence as the sport's new global superstar. On the WNBA side, the current Supermax contracts hover in the low to mid $200,000 range. A one-season offer at 4 times that number does not just raise eyebrows. It blows up the entire salary structure. Veterans making around $100,000 or a bit more would look at those foreign checks and immediately question why staying loyal to the WNBA is worth it. If Caitlin takes that kind of deal, the ripple effect is massive. Players' union leadership would face pressure from every direction. On one hand, they need to maintain solidarity. On the other, nobody wants to be the one telling rank-and-file players they should turn down retire for life money to protect a pay scale that has kept them underpaid for decades. And here is the twist the WNBA cannot hide behind. Caitlin's real money already comes from endorsements, and those brands are global. Nike, Gatorade, State Farm. These companies sell shoes, drinks, and insurance in Riyadh, Dubai, Paris, and Tokyo just like they do in Indianapolis. If she goes on a global tour, her value to them could actually grow because they are buying her face, her game, and her story, not the letters WNBA on her jersey. The old argument that players need the league for exposure does not hit the same when the player in question is bigger than the league in terms of attention. Now, before crowning any foreign offer as inevitable, remember there is another movement happening stateside. Breanna Stewart and Nafisa Collier helped launch Unrivaled, a new 3-on-3 league concept promising better pay, equity options, and a different schedule tailored to players' bodies and long-term health. Unrivaled is a clear statement that current models are not working. By offering six-figure salaries averaging over $220,000 and giving players actual ownership stakes, it tries to fix what many see as a broken system that forces athletes to grind overseas just to pay the bills. It is a powerful idea, especially for mid-tier players who will never touch Caitlin Clark-level endorsement money. But even Unrivaled runs into the same ceiling when the conversation shifts to sovereign wealth funds. Six-figure pay and equity options are meaningful. 7 or 8 figures wired straight into your account for one short season is life-altering. Unrivaled proves that players themselves know the WNBA model is flawed. It shows domestic creativity and ambition. What it does not do is remove the leverage foreign money has over the very top stars. If a Saudi-backed series came in with a number so outrageous that it turned every head in the sports world, neither the WNBA nor Unrivaled could match it straight up. That imbalance is exactly what makes the speculation so explosive. To understand why all of this energy centers around one player, zoom out and look at what Caitlin Clark has actually done for the business side of basketball. Her college career at Iowa turned regular season games into must-see television, with several broadcasts drawing millions of viewers, numbers that rivaled or beat many men's games. Her NCAA tournament runs produced record-breaking ratings, including some of the most watched women's basketball games ever recorded. When she jumped to the WNBA, that spotlight followed. Attendance surged in every arena she visited. Ticket prices on the secondary market spiked whenever the Indiana Fever came to town. Her jersey sales went through the roof, and her presence boosted local economies around Indiana by tens of millions of dollars, according to later estimates. One analysis suggested she was responsible for roughly 26.5% of total WNBA revenue in 2024. Think about that. One player generating more than a quarter of an entire league's income while earning under $80,000 from her official salary. It is not just a mismatch. It is a case study in how badly a system can lag behind reality. At that point, Caitlin Clark is no longer just a player. She is an economy. She is a moving stock market. TV partners care about whether she is on the schedule. Cities care about when she is in town. Sponsors plan their campaigns around her story arcs. So ask yourself, if that kind of economy feels disrespected inside one league, physically, culturally, and financially, how hard would it really be for her to take that economy someplace else? Here is where Stephen A. Smith's warning turns from hot take to real concern. If Caitlin Clark decides that the cost of staying in the WNBA outweighs the benefits, the fallout could be catastrophic for the league. Start with the Indiana Fever. Without her, you are talking about a team that instantly loses its main draw. Attendance drops, local TV interest cools, and the energy around the franchise shrinks. It does not matter how passionate the hardcore fans are. The casuals, the families, and the new viewers tuned in for Caitlin Clark. Then take a step back and look at the national picture. TV ratings that spiked when she arrived would flatten or retreat if she walked away to a foreign series or even a rival domestic league. Network executives and streaming platforms would suddenly look at long-term deals with different eyes. Sponsors who jumped on board to ride the wave might start scaling back if the main face of the product is no longer wearing a WNBA jersey. Now imagine being one of the veterans who spent more time hazing her than celebrating her. Imagine waking up one day, checking the schedule, and realizing the road crowds are back to half of what they were. The merch line is shorter. The Instagram buzz is quieter. The fairness and pay your dues culture might feel satisfying in the moment, but it does not pay the bills when the golden goose flies away. Stephen A. keeps hammering a basic principle. You do not rough up the person paying for your charter flights. You do not run off the player who is finally making negotiations with TV partners fun instead of painful. You do not let jealousy and ego burn down the one bridge that can actually lead to real financial security for everyone. The WNBA is trapped in its own logic. It cannot afford to match what foreign money might offer Caitlin Clark, but it also cannot afford to lose her without risking a slide back into niche status. The very structure of the league, the CBA, the salary cap, it all becomes a cage that might not be able to hold its biggest star. And that leaves one last question hanging not just over the Fever, not just over the WNBA, but over the entire future of women's basketball. What does Caitlin Clark owe the league? And what does the league owe Caitlin Clark? If the WNBA finds a way to protect her, respect her value, and cool down the toxic energy that is built up around her, this could be the beginning of a golden era that lifts everyone. If it does not, If it keeps treating her like a rookie who should be grateful instead of an economy that needs to be cherished, then all the leverage tilts in her favor. The exit strategy becomes more than a rumor.